Imagine looking at a world map and assuming borders are neat, logical lines drawn carefully between nations. Straight lines here, rivers there, mountains acting like natural walls. But the reality is far stranger. Some borders zigzag through houses, slice villages in half, or exist because of ancient treaties, drunken negotiations, forgotten wars, or simple misunderstandings. Today, we're diving into the world's strangest borders. Lines on the map that tell incredible stories about power, history, and human absurdity. Let's start with a border so bizarre it feels almost fictional. In Europe, between Belgium and Netherlands, there's a small town called Baarle. Here, the border doesn't just cut through streets, it cuts through living rooms, cafes, and shops. In some houses, the front door is in one country while the kitchen is in another. The border is marked with white crosses on the ground, and nationality is sometimes determined by where your front door is located. This madness comes from medieval land swaps between dukes and lords, agreements so complicated that even modern governments decided it was easier to keep the chaos than fix it. Residents live with two sets of laws, two police forces, and different tax rules, sometimes within the same building. Now let's move to a border that exists almost by accident. The line between United States and Canada is often described as the longest undefended border in the world, but parts of it are deeply strange. Take the tiny community of Point Roberts, a piece of the United States that's only accessible by land through Canada. Why does it exist? Because diplomats in the 1800s drew the border along the 49th parallel without fully considering geography. As a result, Americans living there must cross an international border just to go to school, buy groceries, or visit a hospital. During border closures, life there can feel completely cut off from the rest of the country. In the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, there's a border so short, it's almost comical. The boundary between Spain and Morocco is only a few hundred feet long, located on a rocky peninsula called Peñón de Vélez de la Gomera. Originally an island, it became connected to the African mainland after a sandstorm in the 1930s. Overnight, Spain and Morocco gained a land border that no one had planned for. Today, it's guarded, fenced, and politically sensitive, proof that even nature can redraw borders without asking permission. Some borders exist because of time itself. In Europe again, the border between Germany and Austria once included a village called Kleinwalsertal that was technically Austrian, but only accessible through Germany. For decades, it used German phone networks, German postal services, and even German currency before the euro existed. It functioned like part of Germany while officially belonging to Austria, a reminder that borders don't always match how people actually live. Then there are borders that cut directly through buildings in ways that seem almost cruel. In the town of Derby Line, the border between the United States and Canada runs straight through the Haskell Free Library and Opera House. The books are in one country, the stage is in another, and a line on the floor marks where one nation ends and the other begins. Visitors must be careful not to accidentally cross the border without checking in with customs afterward. It's a peaceful symbol of cooperation, but also a perfect example of how arbitrary borders can be. In Africa, colonial history created borders that often ignore ethnic groups, geography, and common sense. One of the strangest results is the Gambia, a narrow country that snakes along a river and is almost entirely surrounded by Senegal. The border follows the Gambia River inland, a leftover from agreements between British and French colonial powers who divided the region without consulting the people who lived there. Today, the country is sometimes jokingly described as a river with a flag, but the consequences of that border are very real, affecting trade, travel, and national identity. Asia offers its own border oddities. Between India and Bangladesh, there used to be one of the most complex border situations on Earth. Dozens of enclaves inside enclaves, sometimes 3 layers deep. People could technically cross international borders just by walking to a neighbor's house. Many residents lived for decades without clear citizenship, access to schools, or health care. In 2015, both countries finally agreed to exchange these enclaves, simplifying the border and giving tens of thousands of people a clear national identity for the first time in their lives. Some borders are strange because they don't really exist in physical form. Antarctica, governed by international treaties, has borders that are claimed by multiple countries but mostly ignored. Nations like Argentina, Chile, and United Kingdom all claim overlapping sections, yet no one truly enforces these lines. It's a rare example of a continent where borders are more about politics than control, frozen lines on paper over a frozen land. Back in Europe, there's a border that changes with the seasons. The boundary between Finland and Sweden follows rivers that shift over time. Instead of constantly redrawing maps, the countries agreed that the border would move naturally with the river. This means land can technically change nationality over the years, not because of war or treaties, but because water slowly carves a new path. Even in the ocean, borders can be strange. There's a point in the Pacific where the maritime borders of United States, Russia, Japan, and South Korea come unusually close. Here, invisible lines determine fishing rights, military zones, and resource control, despite there being nothing but open water. These unseen borders are some of the most fiercely defended in the world. What makes all these borders truly strange isn't just their shape, but what they reveal about us. Borders are supposed to represent identity and control, yet so many of them exist because of mistakes, compromises, or outdated decisions. They show how history lingers in the present, how power once exercised can shape lives centuries later, and how humans try to impose logic on a messy world. For the people living along these borders, the strangeness isn't theoretical. It's daily life. It affects which school you attend, which hospital you can use, which laws you follow, and sometimes even which side of the bed you wake up on. Borders can divide families, but they can also create unique cultures that blend languages, traditions, and identities in ways that don't fit neatly into national boxes. So next time you look at a map, remember that those thin lines aren't just geography. They're stories. Stories of kings and colonizers, rivers and storms, mistakes and negotiations. And in the world's strangest borders, those stories are written not just on paper, but across homes, streets, and lives.